Hello, everyone. Welcome to Management Information Systems Unit number two. Unit number two, we'll be talking about pretty much we'll go through the company itself, how the IT function helps to transform all the processes. But we will see it as a point of, as an organization, what does that mean for them and the organization, how they craft a strategy. So let's start. So first of all, we need to understand what is the relationship between organizations and the IT, right? So we understand firstly that a company is putting together plenty of processes. And when we're talking about processes, we're talking about the structure of the company, how it's organized, what kind of assets they have, and how they move them along, right? Assets and liabilities. When it comes to that, that means the people, the supplies, the different functions, such as the marketing, such as the finance, the money, how we move them all along, right? So in this case, we have to understand that both of them, IT and the organization itself, will influence each other because that means that, for example, let's say I have a workforce of 30 employees, right? So this workforce of 30 employees means I have to organize them, I have to pay them, I have to make them more productive. How do I do that? Yeah, I can do it manually. I can craft some schedules for them. Okay, you're gonna come here at 7 a.m. and you're gonna leave at 4. And every time that you come in, you're gonna check, and then when you leave, you check again. So everything can be done manually, surely, but why would we go through that if now technology is sufficiently advanced to track them and track absolutely everything that has to do with them? And that means, like I said, their productivity, how many, let's say, for example, the employee is in the employee is in in the working floor, the working plant, how many tools you're producing, how many hours you have worked, how much you have to pay you in overtime, and all that. So that brings us to have some management decisions, and everything can go faster through the IT process, right? And then we become dependent on that. We become dependent on the technology itself, right? So what is the organization? On the technical definition, we have here, for example, we have some inputs from the environment, and then we're going to transform them into outputs. That means, for example, we have a company that has the Nike shoes. So that is already the output. The Nike shoes is already the output. The input that we have is we have labor, we have the materials, we have the machines, and we have all the software that goes involved into that. So all those inputs, we're going to put them in together, and then we're going to transform. So that is the technical definition of organization, and then we have to keep it in mind because understanding what are the supplies or what are the inputs that we have will help us to choose what kind of technology or what kind of IT we're going to use to transform them, right? So that's in a nutshell. Okay, very good. So now, um, so now, in the second part, like I said, we have the behavioral part of the organization, and that means how it behaves as an ecosystem. And this ecosystem has a lot of people, division, rules, culture, processes, a and then precisely we were talking about the inputs and the outputs. It sounded very simple. I have the shoes, well, I have the materials, and then I will transform them into shoes. But we go into way, way, way more processes because of the behavioral part, right? How are we going to make sure that we make more shoes? how we're going to make sure they have the right design, how we're going to make sure that people is following over the standards of production, etc. So that becomes very, very complex, and the more we understand it and the better we can measure it, then the more productive we will be. So if we cannot measure the how long this process takes and how it's produced, it's difficult for us to improve it. And pretty much that is a function of IT, which is measuring, analyzing, transforming based on information. Okay, very good. So now in this case, like I said, we have hierarchies. We have the routines, which are the process, rules, the way we produce things. Then the business process is a collection of all those things. And then finally, the firm, which is a collection of many, many business processes, which I explained earlier, right? Now, when we're talking about this, we have to directly talk about organizational politics, because in this case, we have always political struggle, competition, conflict, and while some academics state that the political struggle is only within humans, it also happens with machines, okay? With the technology itself, because the technology has a certain vision of what they want to perform in this work. So let's say, for example, we have a very efficient software to measure the production times, right? Talk times and the outcomes. They're very efficient at that. This software has all the tools, but the management or the people, they are not giving it the right information. So whose failure is it? It's not the machine. The machine has a goal of showing, measuring the productivity, but if you don't give it the right tools, then it's a conflict in there. So in this case, it's not the machine, it's a human is a problem. And then we have to think of those things, right? So anyways, here it's important to understand that naturally people is reluctant to change. So, and it just in any normal aspect, people don't want to change in many ways. So when we have the factor that technology comes in, and I don't want you to do this process anymore in the way you used to do it, but now you're going to be doing with the aid of a certain machine or a certain technology, certain software, then people change and people think that they're going to be replaced, right? People don't want to lose their jobs to machines. And certainly it's true. I mean, we've been replacing humans with machines, but at the same time now we need humans in other parts of the processes that maintain the machines and so on. So definitely we are not destroying jobs, not because automation happens. That means that we don't have to remove the human hand all the time, right? So anyways, we have these organizational environments. So, like I said, in these environments, the IT can act as a lens, as in we can zoom and see what is really happening if we have the right processes and we're measuring them properly, like as I mentioned earlier, right? So now, when we're talking about implementation of technology at the workplace, there has been a lot of disruptive technologies. And what do we mean by disruptive technologies? The disruptive technology is very simple. It's a technology that breaks the cycle of how things been done in the past years, right? So here, for example, we can see how we used to do things manually. Then the internet came and changed it. Then we used to process information, but because of the internet, information became exponential. Now we have a ridiculous amount of information. Think about it. Every time you just go to Instagram or Facebook or your favorite social media, you click something, and even if you don't click, even if you just browse, it already measures how long you were there, what kind of images you were watching, what times you did it, what was your location, and that already generates a ridiculous amount of information that is useful for someone. Which business? Don't ask me. That could be tons of businesses may find that information very useful. But again, that creates big data. We have to analyze it and see how we can create business intelligence out of that, right? So, anyways, going back to disruptive technologies, they changed the systems, and let's take a look here, for example, as how a recent change in softwares also has been disruptive. Like here, for example, we can see the service as a software as a service systems, which brings us the practice of digital versus legacy systems. So legacy systems is what we used to do before, which was we had servers in the office, we had computers installed with a software, and nowadays we're moving as software as a service, meaning that I can access it anywhere, anyhow, as long as I have internet connection. Meaning, for example, this one I'm talking here mostly when it comes to this example, I'm gonna be using Azure, Windows Azure. So previously, you had your files on your computer, meaning this presentation, this presentation, I could already save it into my computer, and if I wanted to access, I had to go to my computer and physically get it, right? In some of the cases, I couldn't keep it in my computer because of sensitive information, maybe some files, some documents, and there was a server in my company that will keep it. So that was a physical part of it. But nowadays, like I said, I can just have an Azure, account, and then I can access everything through an application, right? The only thing that I do is I access my application on my computer, access to my internet, just go there and access all the information remotely. So and for that, I mean, there's many steps because of course this this disruptive technology has gone in through different steps. So first of all, we have, like, for example, the infrastructure. Some of the servers are just remotely, and then we have just a platform, and then nowadays we have, if we allow Microsoft, they can pretty much run the whole thing by themselves. They don't need my input. Just I use it as a user and that's it. And that's fantastic because this removes the need of installing software, having servers, and going through so many things. And that changes the nature of IT in an office, definitely. So when we're talking about economic impacts, this is that the benefits are ridiculous. And think, I mean, companies that you still want to be on legacy is, again, part of the environment, part of the politics of the company, that they really don't want to do it because we do have tons of information. Here, for example, we have 87% of companies believe digital transformation is a competitive opportunity. You need to have information, as I said earlier, business intelligence that lets you change your systems. If I'm not selling my product very well, but I have the IT that tells me live why I'm not selling on time, then of course then we can do, right? Here says, for example, 85% feel that 2 years make significant inroads in their digital transformation. So people transform and they quickly feel there's a change. Now also companies, 88% that are using third-party providers, like this one, for example, I was talking about here, the Microsoft. And then we have automation and optimization of the market is growing. The compound annual rate of growth is going exponential, right? Everything is growing massively, and of course, like I said, companies are looking to change their competitive advantage, which is through technology, right? So in this case, when we talk about the transaction cost theory, we are just trying to look of how we can make all those processes more efficient And when we make them more efficient, that means we'll use less resources and we pay less money for that. So it means the cost is going down, right? Maybe I'm using some software, which it costs me, but not the same as in having 5 employees to do it. Maybe I'm saving also in the materials because I'm not wasting them, and so on, right? The same thing as in IT helps the infrastructure itself, but it also helps the behavioral impacts in terms of it flattens organizations. It makes them more linear because everyone has access to the information. So we have, with IT implementation, we have forgotten about the times where we needed too much of other departments, or departments held information hostage. Now we can access that information whenever we want, and there's more flexibility and transparency, which is very, very important in a company to be successful. So now, in this case, I was talking that, I'm talking about the benefits of implementing the technology, and that's fantastic. But the resistance to implement them, it's you wouldn't believe how difficult it is. I have experienced it myself, and it starts from fear of people thinking that they're gonna lose their jobs. Uh, People also is used to um, do the same thing over for many years. Let's say, for example, in the accounting department, people has done the accounting manually or some certain worksheet like Excel for the past 30 years. And then I come and tell them, now we're gonna have this software that does the calculations, and actually you just need to monitor them and take decisions based on that. So firstly, how is this work gonna take over myself? And secondly, I don't know how to use, produces some anxiety, and then employees go very how to say, haywire over these changes, and they really don't want to do it, right? And here I want to give you an example of the resistance to change. It was Kodak. This was a massive company back in the 80s, in the 90s as well, when the digital imaging was not there, right? So this company really resisted to change, thinking that no, digital cameras will never take over the world. And then we see there was a massive change. This company is uh, practically nil, and this is how it goes. You can see, and I want to here make a parenthesis. Here I would like to make a parenthesis of this company, GameStop. It's a retailer of video games, a shop, and the problem is nowadays video games are sold online. So this company is on its road to death. But some retail investors, they decided to lift the stock. Maybe you have heard of it. It's a meme stock. You can read more about it online, because I'm not gonna go into explaining how the stock market works. But this company, suddenly the stock goes up because some people start to invest on it, and for them it's an opportunity. Because of them, there was an influx of capital into the company, and this is helping them to really rebrand themselves and try to, through strategic actions, try to come back to life. Let's see how that ends up. Yeah, the industry is changing and they have to adapt to it, and that's what many companies haven't really learned how to do it. There was this company, Toys R Us, also another one that is struggling because of the e-commerce, right? So very well. And so now, of course, internet and organizations, helps them. Like I said, we have, going back to the same example of, for example, how retailers have benefit of the internet because they can sell their products. They have a larger market. They have access to suppliers abroad, consumers abroad, and this works very well. right? So, um, on the other hand, we also have to think of how the internet works for the company internally. Internally, it also helps in the sense of we can train our employees through different methods online. We can allow them to access our features or things of the company through their computer back at home. This pandemic, definitely work from home, work remotely. This has helped a lot. If I think if this pandemic had happened in maybe 15 years ago, we would really be struggling as compared to now how technology has allowed us to really go through without much problem. When it comes to software problems in social life and personal life, it's a different thing, right? So of course, then we have the implications for the design and understanding the information systems. Here I just want to say it, that there's many areas that we have in here in terms of the environment, the structure, the culture, the politics. Yeah, plays a everything plays a role. Just trying to say, we're going to implement this software because it's very good for our production, for our competitive advantage, sounds fantastic, but we have to change everything. Just setting an ERP system means that we have to make people work in the same way, as in the documents have to be standardized, the processes need to be standardized, the people has to work exactly in the same ways. We need to open all the information, we need to digitalize all the information. If it was not digitalized, if it was digital, we have to make sure it fits the same format. So opening up all those silos, all that information, and restructuring it is difficult. So of course the implications for really implementing a new system are ridiculous. We really have to do so many things. So now let's talk about how, I mean, the benefits of this IT system. So in this case, we have to understand a little bit the five competitive forces, Porter's five forces. I'm not gonna go into them very deeply, but pretty much what we are looking at is that there's an environment controlling us as a company, which is we need to understand who are our suppliers, who are our customers, what kind of products we have, who is in the market, and then who was traditional in the market. So when we understand all those forces, this one, like I said, you have to go a little bit more in depth because this is already strategic management. So, anyways, the firm has many forces that are external forces that put some stress and pressure into our firm. And here, what's going to happen is we, in order to react to those forces, we need strategies. And those strategies can be delivered by systems. So in this case, how are going to be some of our strategies? So for example, we have a low cost leadership. So it means I want to respond to the market conditions with a very cheap product. So how do I react to it? Through IT systems. Yeah, of course. If I can minimize the cost, then that's a good idea, right? Through IT systems that tell me how I can make it cheaper, more efficient. Product differentiation. In this case, for example, I can design better products through IT, focus on the market niche. I can focus on targets of my product because I can do the analysis already through information of social media or so, or strengthen customer and supplier intimacy like we see on the unit before. We can do our SCM, our supply chain management through IT, or our CRM, or customer relationship management. We can do it through we can strengthen it through the IT function, right? So there you go. So a in this case, to achieve these responses, we have to go through what is a business value chain model. That means that we have to optimize many of those functions, and it can be through primary or support activities, which is a little bit more of the primary functions of the company in terms of the hardware, in terms of the operations itself, or it can be in support activities, which is the external parts, right? So anyways, how can we always add value? And I think here it's a great example of the value chain model works in the one day shipping works for Amazon, same as many e-commerce companies. You have you have to optimize all the systems in order for that to happen. This one day delivery didn't happen in one day. They had to optimize many systems, as in knowing where the packages are, what are the supplies that are going through the chain, in terms of the delivery, setting up the packages, setting up the routes to make it more efficiently, many things. Of course, this one I prefer you to watch the video so that you understand, and then this will make a lot of sense. Then we're going to talk about that, and that will make a lot of sense. Very good. So, and this one together, extending the value chain. We can talk about companies that just do it in terms of delivering their product, or like Amazon in this case, which is goes to the value web. They extend it also to, well, actually, they are naturally web natives. So in this case, there is not an extension for them. They were already like that. But when we're talking about other companies, yes, we can think of that. Example, Costco. Costco had the original value chain. Yeah,
Before Prime launched in 2000.
they did have systems, and they worked very well, but they have to keep up with e-commerce, and for the same reason they had to extend themselves to the they had to extend themselves to the internet, right? So this is again is an extension, and well, we can think about this one precisely. This one we can talk about the virtual company model. So yeah, sometimes, or not sometimes, now many companies literally don't have too many physical assets. Many of their resources are held online. Much of their inventory is counting online, so they just pull things from different locations. Here, for example, we have garment of major fashion companies. Yeah, pretty much some of the companies are located, or the manufacturings are, say, supplier third parties, and they just pull and put the supplies from many places, and they just put them in the retail store or even digitally, right? They don't go through a physical store. So so what are the challenges? Finally, what are the challenges posed by strategic information systems? So first of all, sustaining the competitive advantage is difficult, because I mean, in the end, whenever we establish these changes into the systems, we make them more efficient. Other companies want to know what we're doing, and here, for example, we have already many companies competing for the e-commerce: Alibaba, eBay, Amazon, JD, Coupang, etc. So in this case, copying the systems happens very often, and keeping these competitive advantages difficult. Second thing, aligning IT with business objectives, which is, like I was mentioning earlier, getting the machine to work with us. Sometimes the machine has its functions, its goals within the network, and then we have the company that has its goals within the network. And I'm going to give you a very good example of this, which is big data. Many companies think that big data is the answer to everything. As if I have a lot of information and I know everything, I will have a competitive advantage. No. First of all, finding patterns in the big data is very difficult. That is the first thing. And the second thing is taking strategic actions with that data. So in this case, for example, I can see that there's a good market of my consumers in, let's say, China. That's fantastic. I can see a potential market in there, but in the big data is telling me the problem is that I cannot put my products in that market for very specific regulatory law, that I cannot put my products in there. So in this case, if I cannot go that market, the IT tells me something, but it doesn't match with my business objectives. Like my actions cannot do it, right? So that doesn't help. And finally, managing strategic transitions, which is Again, saying that we can implement a system is easy, but uh, we need to talk to the people. We need to talk to suppliers. We need to talk to retailers. It's not easy. Sometimes suppliers don't want to work with us. Let me give you the example of Starbucks. Starbucks is a company that if you want to sell them coffee or if you want to sell them any kind of product, maybe the mugs, maybe any consumables, they have a very, very, very specific guidelines of how you can work with them. Why? Because they want to monitor their system, they use their information systems, and if the product that you are selling them doesn't fit into their supply chain system, they don't want to take it, regardless how good it is. So, same as Costco that I mentioned earlier, right? If the things don't fit already their IT system and the systems that are already in place, they rather not work with you because in the end, they know for them it's a liability rather than an asset, right? Very good. So this is a firm in general, and with that we will finish today. Thank you so much, and then I'll see you next time.